This is a story about the true meaning of inheritance, the resilience of love, and the ultimate price of prejudice. The setting for this conflict was not a battlefield, but the manicured lawns and marble halls of the old guard. Our protagonist is Arthur Sterling, a man whose name was synonymous with stability and wealth in the city. At 68, Arthur carried the quiet dignity of a man who had earned his place in the world. He was a widower, having spent 40 years in a dutiful, if passionless, marriage. He thought his life story was nearly complete. Then he met Lila DuBois. Lila was 39, an architect with a restless, brilliant mind and a laugh that could shatter the solemnity of any room. She was black, with an elegance that was all her own, an effortless combination of grace and grit. They met at a gallery opening, drawn together not by circumstance, but by a shared, deep appreciation for a piece of avant-garde sculpture that everyone else found baffling. Arthur was captivated by her intellect, her fire, and the sheer, vibrant force of her character. Lila saw past the sterling name and the silver hair. She saw the curious, gentle, and lonely man underneath. Their love was an unconventional spark that quickly grew into a roaring fire. It was genuine, profound, and utterly indifferent to the whispers of society. They spent their days in intellectual debate, shared travel, and quiet moments of simple joy. For the first time in his life, Arthur felt truly seen. For Lila, Arthur was a safe harbor and a tireless champion of her work. After 2 years, Arthur proposed on a wind-swept cliff overlooking the ocean. He didn't just ask her to marry him. He asked her to share the rest of his life, however long that might be. Lila, her eyes shining with genuine love, accepted. The announcement was met with polite surprise from Arthur's friends, but it landed like a grenade in the small, insular world of his immediate family. The antagonists of our story were his children. Charles Sterling, his son, a 45-year-old financial advisor obsessed with the trajectory of the family trust, and Victoria, Charles's wife, a woman whose entire identity was built on social climbing and judgmental gossip. Then there was Eleanor, Arthur's estranged daughter, who only resurfaced when she smelled money. For them, Lila was not a person. She was an anomaly and a threat to the established order of inheritance. The formal meet-the-family dinner was set in the Sterling Mansion's dining room, a cavernous space where generations of judgmental portraits hung silently on the walls. The atmosphere was immediately toxic, the air thick with barely concealed contempt. Arthur, beaming, introduced Lila. "Family," he announced, raising his glass, "I want you to join me in welcoming Lila into our family. We are going to be married." Charles put his wine glass down with a deliberate thunk. "Married, father? At your age? And after such a short acquaintance?" He managed to avoid looking Lila in the eye. Lila, ever gracious, offered a calm smile. "It has been 2 wonderful years, Charles. We feel very ready." Victoria, however, could not contain herself. She was the one who launched a full frontal attack, cloaking her blatant racism and greed in the guise of concern. "Lila," Victoria began, her voice falsely sweet and dangerously smooth, "we are just trying to understand your intentions. Arthur is a very wealthy man. You are, so young. And forgive me, but our family is quite traditional. We just want to make sure you understand the magnitude of the Sterling estate and the responsibilities that come with it. We wouldn't want Arthur to be taken advantage of." The emphasis on intentions and the subtle implication that her intentions were nefarious due to her youth and, more significantly, her race, hung heavy in the air. Arthur's face darkened. "That's enough, Victoria. Lila is a successful architect and philanthropist. She is independently wealthy and certainly does not need my money. I find your line of questioning insulting." But Charles pressed on, his tone becoming cold and managerial. "Father, this is serious. We've been looking into this. She doesn't come from our world. There are matters of the trust, the prenuptial agreement. There will be no prenuptial agreement," Arthur interrupted, his voice firm. "We trust each other implicitly. And as for your precious trust, Charles, you'll be well taken care of as always, but my primary concern now is my happiness." Eleanor, who had been silent, finally spoke, her voice laced with bitterness. "Happiness? Or a midlife crisis replacement for mother? Frankly, Lila, it's just not appropriate. Our family name, it carries a certain weight. And I'm sorry, but this entire situation, it feels like a slight against everything our family stands for. Lila, for the first time, spoke directly to her tormentors, her eyes piercing and steady. Arthur's family stands for him. That's all that matters to me. I love him. My intentions are simply to make him happy and to care for him. If that is a threat to your traditions, then perhaps your traditions are what need be questioned. The dinner ended not with dessert, but with a frigid silence. As Lila and Arthur prepared to leave, Charles delivered the final, crushing ultimatum. He pulled Arthur aside, his face hard with entitlement. Father, listen to me. This isn't just about money. It's about maintaining our position. If you go through with this marriage, this scandal, Victoria and I and Eleanor will be forced to cut ties. No more holidays, no more family functions. We will make it clear to the entire social circle that we do not endorse this union. You choose your legacy or her. Arthur looked at his son, his heart breaking, not for himself, but for the shallow, poisonous creature Charles had become. My legacy, Charles, will now be defined by the love and joy Lila has brought me. You have made your choice clear, and I have made mine. You are welcome at the wedding, but if you choose to boycott it, I will consider that your final word. The family chose the boycott. The wedding was small, but filled with genuine joy. Lila's family flew in, filling the small garden venue with warmth, laughter, and acceptance, a stark contrast to the icy, judgmental atmosphere of the Sterlings. Lila was radiant. Arthur was younger than he had been in decades. They were truly married, and their love was their shield. But the isolation was immediate and pervasive. Charles, Victoria, and Eleanor made good on their threat. The social calendar went silent. Calls went unreturned. Whispers turned into open slights at charity galas. Lila was routinely treated as an interloper, a gold digger who had trapped a vulnerable old man. She was strong, fiercely so, using her own successful career to silence the claims of avarice. But the constant, low-level hum of prejudice was exhausting. Arthur saw the pain it caused her, and it fueled his own righteous anger. The marriage was idyllic. They traveled, they created, and they loved deeply. Lila managed their lives seamlessly, balancing her work with Arthur's social engagements, bringing a new, vibrant energy to his life that his previous wife had never possessed. Then, one cold November morning, the real test came. Arthur suffered a severe heart arrhythmia and collapsed. Lila, acting with the speed and precision of a military commander, stabilized him, called the private ambulance, and managed the entire chaotic situation, all while keeping a calm voice on phone with the doctors. For the next 2 months, Lila was Arthur's sole, tireless caregiver. She monitored his medication, managed his physical therapy, and was his constant emotional anchor. She didn't hire a nurse until Arthur insisted, and even then, Lila remained the primary, ever-present force in his recovery. She proved, in the most profound way possible, that her commitment was not to his wallet, but to his life. The family's reaction was predictable and horrific. Charles and Victoria showed up at the hospital only once, not asked about Arthur's health, but to corner the estate lawyer in the hallway, asking about the power of attorney and the status of Arthur's will. They even had the audacity to suggest to the attending physician that if Arthur's quality of life was too low, perhaps drastic measures should be considered, a veiled, cold calculation of inheritance over life. They never even spoke to Lila, dismissing her by insinuating she was over-medicating him to keep him docile and in control of his finances. Lila was outraged, but she maintained her silence, knowing her actions spoke louder than their venom. She recorded every visit, every cruel word, every moment of their calculated neglect. Arthur slowly recovered, but the incident had been a profound shock. It clarified everything. He saw the stark contrast, the cold, calculating greed of his blood relatives versus the selfless, exhausting love of the woman he had chosen. 3 months after his heart scare, Arthur was well enough to return home. He called his lawyer, Mr. Thompson, for a private meeting. He looked at Lila, his eyes full of love and regret. "Lila, my love," he said, "the time has come to make things right." The following week, Arthur called an obligatory family meeting. Charles, Victoria, and Eleanor arrived, their faces tight with false concern and barely hidden excitement, assuming Arthur was too weak to fight them anymore and was ready to hand over the reins. They gathered in the drawing room, Arthur looking frail but completely composed, with Lila seated quietly beside him. Mr. Thompson, the lawyer, sat across from them with a thick sheaf of papers. "Thank you all for coming," Arthur began, his voice weak but clear. "As you know, I had a health crisis. That time has forced me to reconsider a great many things, especially the concept of family and legacy." Charles cut in, unable to hide his eagerness. "Father, we understand. It's time to talk about the trust. I prepared a comprehensive plan for the transfer of assets." Arthur held up a hand. "Stop, Charles. You will listen now. I am not passing the reins. I am redefining my legacy." He looked at his son, his eyes heavy with sorrow. "Charles, Victoria, Eleanor, for the last 5 years you have treated the woman I love with calculated cruelty, born of nothing but greed and a repulsive, outdated prejudice. When I needed you most, you asked my lawyer about my will. When Lila worked tirelessly to save my life, you suggested to my doctors that I was a liability. Your actions have not only been morally reprehensible, but an active source of pain and stress in my life." He paused, taking a slow, steady breath. "Therefore, I made a final, irrevocable decision. Mr. Thompson, please read the summary of the final, signed will." Mr. Thompson stood up, the rustle of the legal papers a dramatic counterpoint to the family's sudden, terrified silence. "By the revised will of Arthur Sterling, dated this day," the lawyer began, his voice dry and professional. "All previous bequests and provisions made to Charles Sterling, Victoria Sterling, and Eleanor Sterling regarding the majority of the liquid estate are hereby revoked and voided. In consideration of their demonstrated lack of familial devotion, their share of the liquid wealth is reduced to a nominal stipend." Charles let out a strangled gasp, his face turning ashen. "Father, you can't." Mr. Thompson continued, unmoved. "The bulk of the liquid estate, including the holdings in Sterling Group and various investment funds, is bequeathed to Lila Du Bois Sterling, to be used at her discretion." He then read the final devastating blow. "Furthermore, a new entity, the Du Bois Sterling Foundation for Equity in Arts, is established with an endowment that constitutes over half of the Sterling wealth. This foundation is dedicated to supporting education and arts initiatives within underrepresented communities. Lila Du Bois Sterling is named the lifetime chairwoman and sole executor, ensuring the foundation will operate according to her vision." Arthur looked at his children, who were now sputtering with fury and betrayal, their dreams of inherited wealth shattered by their own coldness. "You wanted my legacy, Charles? My legacy will now be one of justice, opportunity, and love. It will be run by the only person who ever showed me unconditional love and true devotion." Charles erupted, screaming accusations of manipulation and coercion at Lila, but Arthur silenced him with a stare of pure steel. "Get out of my house. Your greed has finally cost you everything. You're no longer welcome here." The family left that day not as heirs, but as disgraced failures, their social standing ruined by the very greed they had sought to protect. Arthur and Lila spent the remainder of Arthur's life in peace and profound happiness, their marriage a testament to the fact that love, character, and dignity always triumph over the shallow, hateful politics of old money and prejudice. The foundation became Arthur's true legacy, a lasting monument to the brilliant, courageous black woman who had taught him the difference between blood and family.